one of you is an imposter. Which one is it? Which one is pretending to have nice face technology? Canon color science exists for some, but not all. You can't just slap a LUT on and pretend that you're the truth. Today we have an epic battle, ZVE1 versus R5 II. Price brackets, different. Caring, me, not at all. Let's go.
All I want is the perfect camera. All I want is the perfect camera.
Can you see a difference? Was it obvious immediately? Sometimes comparisons, I'm just like, oh, obviously Sony. Boom. Sony with the Zeiss 55 1.8, Canon with the EF 50mm 1.2. We're both in 4K. Canon's in the lowest quality 4K it can do, basically. We're both 10-bit 422 for the homeboys, but long GOP on the Canon. So basically I want to test everything, all the slow-mo, the low light, who's better at everything that a YouTube scrub would need. So Sony ZV-E1 has been fantastic. It's always just been, the look is a bit clinical. I am debating selling it, might have already listed it, because Canon does everything I would ever need with just easier to edit files. They're harder to edit, but the colors are better for some, not all. I like the lenses more, better stabe. It's hard to expose these and line them up properly. It's never right. That's a 55, this is a 50. It's slightly back more to compensate, but it's too far back clearly, and the flippy screen's blocking. It's very hard to do these side-by-side bullshits with flippy screens. If they were up, they'd be closer together, but they're not. Okay, I did a bunch of slow motion tests in here. I stopped this lens down to 2.8 as well as that one because I figure this one's not very sharp, wide open. That one is. So like we're all equal here. HD 240, 4K 120, and 4K 60. Even threw in a little Canon C70 4K 60 because everyone's complaining, oh, this is line skipped, it's so much worse. Let's see it together. Okay, first we have the default state. Dolly Parton is now with us, Canon C70. This is 4K 60 with the DGO dynamic range of the gods. This is the pinnacle of 4K 60. Now here's the lowest quality 4K 60 that Canon R5 II can do. Long GOP, 250 megabits per second if it was a foot. Still looks pretty damn better than the 4K 60 of the Canon. And now the highest quality possible, 1860 megabits per second, SRAW standard. So this is the best that the R5 can do right now. When it comes to Sony, they do 600 megabits per second, by the way, and you don't really need to change it, so they just have the one codec pretty much. You're good to go. So side by side, best Canon RAW standard for Sony. It looks like the Canon is better, just from what I can see on this half resolution timeline. And then in the worst quality possible for Canon, in the long GOP, it still looks pretty damn good. If no one was complaining about the 4K 60 on Sony, what are you even doing? Then I asked Johnson to come over. We had to test some things here. So Sony 4K 120 is a 280 megabit per second file. And it's always been great. This is the highest quality you can get, and it's beautiful. 10% crop, that's bullshit, but whatever. Versus Canon, which has two different modes that I tested here. We do 4K 120 in 500 megabits per second, so even the worst quality of Canon is way more information than the Sony. And then Canon can actually do 1800 megabits per second, 4K 120. You just can't do it in 4K fine. It's just 4K line skipped or whatever, but it looks hot damn fantastic. And you're probably getting sick of this bullshit test that no one will ever use, so let's just move on. This is HD 240, Canon on the right, Sony on the left. This is the lowest quality HD on the Canon possible, and it still looks slightly better than the Sony maybe. And then Canon's highest quality, 1200 megabits per second. Yeah, it's noticeably sharper, but barely, kind of. So I think maybe Nikon might be sharper than this, because it was noticeably sharper than Sony, and these are somewhat sharper. We learned nothing. Okay, now for the low light test, and then we go outside. We're at Sony's weakness right now, 10,000 ISO for both, right before it kicks into that second base. And so problems could be happening for Sony. Canon should be looking much nicer. Debatable, I don't even know, I've never tested it. So let's go up to 12,800 where Sony kills everyone. And what will Canon think of this? Boom. Oh, the lighting on this one. I just have a tiny balloon light way off there at 1%, and everything's clipping. I had to up the shutters, but 12,800 ISO. Are we seeing it? Super clean. Maybe Canon's like more detailed, but more noisy, but you don't mind it? Is that what we're seeing? We could be seeing that. Autofocus still seems good? Or not? Okay, let us go outside and do some autofocus tests. Acquisition phase begin. Oh, Canon's a little slow to catch up in the acquiring you. Could be my settings. You never know what the hell. I don't know how to expose different cameras, and there's been a lot of mistakes so far, but here we have some stuff. We're both stopped down to 1.8, so there's similar background blur. Some zebras are just so damn confusing on Sony. I thought I knew the clipping point of S-Log3. I thought it was 94 plus, but I never see them. Never see them ever. So right now we're just testing some autofocus. Who's more reliable out here? Canon's not clipping, 85% C-Log. And then I make sure no zebras exist anywhere. And then it looks super overexposed on the screen. But come on now. So, does one have more pop? The 85 has more than the 50 Canon EF Ys, but the Zeiss might, defeat them all. You better still have me. I'm quite impressed with Canon autofocus so far. When it comes to all the living room stuff, is there much of a damn difference? Like, not really. ZVE1 destroys worlds for the tiny weight, and it's so cheap. Like, you almost can't see all this stuff we brag about. 10-bit, RAW, 12-bit, all this stuff. You can't see a damn thing. The only thing is, did you prefer colors of one or the other? That's all we can really talk about. But when you put everything together, slow motion, talking head stuff, 3D pop, it's tough to beat that ZVE1. It has even some more fun features, like the follow focus thing that tracks you around. That's the only fun thing it has in there, but come on. Come on. I do prefer the Canon because it's more versatile. It has better stabilization for the slow-mo street videography stuff. It has a viewfinder, so I can actually do wildlife soon. That lens should be coming a couple days, although I spent hundreds more on it. At least 180. The battery life is definitely better on the Sony. That's the one thing I've noticed so far, Canon. It's like, wow, that's kind of running out all the time. Have to keep charging this thing. You suck. He's so backlit right now. It's unfreaking ridiculous. The one advantage, obviously, that Canon has, maybe you're seeing it, maybe you're not even seeing it, is we have 8K, and I can edit it as long as it's 10-bit 420, and it's only 400 megabits per second. That's not bad. That's not bad. But like, if it has you in autofocus, you punch on in there, and it's like, come on now. Like, it's beautiful. Just like the Nikon 6K was beautiful. So the advantages of the Sony are pretty obvious, slight, and I might even say that has disappeared. Slight advantage to autofocus. Pretty damn, like, it's always been great, but Canon has finally caught up, I think. Don't quote me on it. But like, great autofocus, much lighter and cheaper. Then you factor in lenses, you have no viewfinder, so you can't do wildlife. Uh-oh. So all of a sudden you're A7S III now, and then you're not so much cheaper, are you? Yeah, you still are, but whatever. Versus the Canon, better colors, but maybe they're worse for you. I've had some people say, like, I prefer the Sony today. Jump off a cliff. Just jump right off it. I may have bit off more than I can chew back here, but we're pretty far now. If I could recommend one system, if you don't have much money, get the ZVE1. It's just fine, as we've seen. If you have some more, and you want more versatile options and wildlife, and you actually take photos, Obviously, that's the hugest advantage in 45 megapixels versus the 12. It's a disadvantage in my books. But like wildlife, I could have just this one camera do everything I need. It's actually perfect for each genre. It's better than Sony in slow-mo street videography. We're gonna do a vlogging test. I would have loved to do that in this video, but it's too much. It's too much. I don't have the 28mm lens, and we need to learn some more about all that. So, who won today's battle, my friend? Was one superior? Was one Canon color science-like in its abilities? Was Sony disgusting enough to deter you? I think they're both good enough. Damn well they are. It's the lens that matters, and E-mount has a lot more options if we're being real. Canon's not gonna let you autofocus with many of the third-party friends. That's fine. That's a lawsuit waiting to happen. I'll leave after Bitcoin donations get thrown to me. Thank you, my friend. Subscribe to my channel. 8K files are too big.